brought to you by Charity Mobile, the phone company that supports life and family. 5% of your monthly plan price goes to your favorite charity. Buy the way you believe at CharityMobile.com and use promo code TRADITION.
We have come to the next part of Pope Pius X's Pascendi Dominici Gregis. And this part is astonishing. I've read this before, but I had forgotten that here St. Pius X categorically predicts Francis's papacy. Every single thing Francis is doing or debating doing is predicted here. Every single thing that even a lot of self-described traditional Catholics who are actually modernists would proclaim, would advocate for. I'm reminded of something Father Ripperger has said before. He has said that most of us are to some degree modernists, that we have just imbibed of the error that dominates the church today to some degree. You will see that probably here, at least in one place or another, in what you're about to hear from Pope St. Pius X. I wouldn't necessarily feel bad about it. I would simply say if these are errors, as Pius X is enumerating, and it's something you hold to, I would suggest working on bringing your beliefs into alignment with that of the historic church. It's as simple as that. Even if you don't understand the teaching, maybe pray for the wisdom and the guidance from God to actually understand why the church has always said X about Y. If you don't understand a teaching, that you believe a teaching should be changed because it's out of date in your mind or would solve some problem in the church if we change the teaching. Pius X lists a whole lot of these in this next section. But the core of it, the very core of what he's saying here, sounds suspiciously like an overt rejection of synodality and the idea of active participation of the laity in the everyday life of governing the church, a cornerstone of Francis's pontificate. I'll let Pope St. Pius X describe the rest of it for you here. But it is not solely by objective arguments that the non-believer may be disposed to faith. There are also subjective ones at the disposal of the modernists, and for those they return to their doctrine of immanence. They endeavor, in fact, to persuade their non-believer that down in the very depths of his nature and his life lie the need and the desire for religion, and this not a religion of any kind, but the specific religion known as Catholicism, which they say is absolutely postulated by the perfect development of life. And here we cannot but deplore once more, and grievously, that there are Catholics who, while rejecting immanence as a doctrine, employ it as a method of apologetics, and who do this so imprudently that they seem to admit that there is in human nature a true and rigorous necessity with regard to the supernatural order, and not merely a capacity and a suitability for the supernatural order, and not merely a capacity and suitability for the supernatural, such as at all times been emphasized by Catholic apologists. Truth to tell, it is only the moderate modernists who make this appeal to an exigency for the Catholic religion. As for the others who might be called integralists, they would show to the non-believer, hidden in the way of the very depths of his being, the very germ which Christ himself bore in his conscience, and which he bequeathed to the world. Such, venerable brethren, is a summary description of the apologetic method of the modernists, who, in perfect harmony, as you may see, with their doctrines, methods, and doctrines, brimming over with errors, made not for edification but for destruction, not for the formation of Catholics but for the plunging of Catholics into heresy, methods and doctrines that would be fatal to any religion. It remains for us now to say a few words about the modernist as reformer. From all that has preceded, some idea may be gained of the reforming mania which possesses them. In all Catholicism there is absolutely nothing on which it does not fasten. Reform of philosophy, especially in the seminaries. The scholastic philosophy is to be relegated to the history of philosophy among obsolete systems, and the young men are to be taught modern philosophy, which alone is true and suited to the times in which we live. Reform of theology. Rational theology is to have modern philosophy for its foundation, and positive theology is to be founded on the history of dogma. As for history, it must be for the future written and taught only according to their modern methods and principles. Dogmas and their evolution are to be harmonized with science and history. In the Catechism, no dogmas are to be inserted except those that have been duly reformed and are with the capacity of the people. Regarding worship, the number of external devotions is to be reduced, or at least steps must be taken to prevent their further increase, though indeed some of the admirers of symbolism are disposed to be more indulgent on this head. Ecclesiastical government requires to be reformed in all its branches, but especially in its disciplinary and dogmatic parts. Its spirit with the public conscience, which is not wholly for democracy. A share in ecclesiastical government should therefore be given to the lower rank of the clergy, and even to the laity, and authority should be decentralized. The Roman congregations, and especially the Index and Holy Office, are to be reformed. The ecclesiastical authority must change its line of conduct in the social and political world. While keeping outside political and social organization, it must adapt itself to those which exist in order to penetrate them with its spirit. With regard to morals, they adopt the principle of the Americanists, that the active virtues are more important than the passive, both in the estimation in which they must be held and in the exercise of them. The clergy are asked to return to their ancient lowliness and poverty, and in their ideas and action to be guided by the principles of modernism. And there are some who, echoing the teaching of their Protestant masters, would like the suppression of ecclesiastical celibacy. What is there left in the Church which would not be reformed according to their principles? I will admit that when I first read that, in preparation for this video, I was a little surprised. It's a little on the nose, as they say. It's almost as if Francis is running his operation with this as his guidebook, except doing everything Pope St. Pius X says not to do. I doubt Francis has read this encyclical since his days in seminary, but I would suggest that it's as if Pius X was almost prophetic in writing this, and that he knew the modernists better than they themselves, and at the end of the day, nothing changes. There are some very good voices among traditional Catholics who say we should stop calling them modernists, because they think that's a different error that we're dealing with. But I think Pius X here demonstrated unequivocally that this is the same error, that we are dealing with the very same error in the 2020s as he was dealing in the first decade of the 20th century, and that Leo XIII was dealing with in the late 19th century before him. This is an ongoing battle for the heart and soul of the Catholic faith. What did you think of that? Were you as surprised by just how on the nose that was as I was? Let me know in the comments, please. Do you think, like I do, that Pope Pius X knew the modernists better than they themselves did? Do you find it a weird coincidence that Francis is doing literally everything on that checklist, or at least debating on some of those issues that he hasn't done yet? Let me know what you thought of this in the comments, please. Hey, like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. And as always, pray for the Church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.